Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin with Reedsy. Today we're going to be talking about 9 things that you can look for when you're doing your developmental edits. So developmental edits are the content portion of editing. This is where you're going to be fixing things like pacing, plot development, character development, cutting redundant scenes, organizing the flow of the chapter. You're not looking at the details of the sentences, fixing your word choice, correcting technical errors, not stuff like that. This is big picture issues. Now, developmental editing is also done by a developmental editor, but developmental edits are also a really important part of the self-editing process. So generally, you would self-edit your book. That includes developmental edits and copy edits, anything in your power that you can do to make your book shine, and then you would hand it over to a developmental editor. So today I'm going to be talking about 9 things to look for when developmental editing your own work, or maybe someone else's work if you've got a critique partner. This isn't replacement for working with a developmental editor, but this is how you can get your book ready to send it to a developmental editor. Number 1, character growth. Character growth and your character's arc is one of the greatest signs of good plot development. The plot pushes the character to grow, so if you can identify a character arc, then you know something is going well. However, if you don't feel like your character has changed, then there might be a bit of a problem. Now, it could be a character problem where you just haven't written the character in a way that reflects necessary change, or you haven't really pushed them enough in order to make them change. If you want to learn more about character arcs, I will leave a link in the cards on a video on how to write a dynamic character. Number 2, make sure that there are no threads abandoned. It's actually quite common in a first draft for writers to introduce something and then kind of just completely forget about it, and then it just doesn't go anywhere. It's kind of just a dead end. Sometimes this is a mystery that's introduced that we never get an answer for, or a subplot, or a side character who appears and then never appears again. It's alright to leave your reader with some questions at the end, but that's different from introducing something in Act 1 that seems like it's supposed to be important, and then kind of just leaving it to the side. Step 3, identify your major plot points. If you didn't identify your major plot points during the outlining phase, it's a good idea to identify them now. So the major plot points that you'll find in most books are the inciting incident, the Act 1 break, the midpoint, the Act 2 break, and the climax. These are kind of like the cornerstones of the plot, so if you feel like there's something wrong with your structure or your pacing, try to identify them and see how they're spaced. If your inciting incident is 40% through the book, or if the book's climax is 60% through the book, then you might have some pacing issues. Number 4, look for active character choices. One of the biggest things that can really drag down a plot, especially through the middle, is a passive main character. Look for points where your character could be making a choice or making an action themselves, rather than having it decided for them by someone else. Sometimes this can even be as simple as having your main character say, "We should do this," rather than asking another character what they should do. Or just having them have to search for something for a moment in order to solve a problem, rather than the solution being right there. These things make the character more sympathetic and much easier to invest in because we can see them actively trying to solve their problem. Number 5, continuity and logic. First drafts can be a little messy. It's very easy for little continuity slips to happen. A character walks into the room and you mention they're wearing a yellow shirt, and then you kind of forget that you wrote that they were wearing a yellow shirt, and later in the scene they're wearing a blue dress. These things are very common because we kind of forget the little details that we wrote down, so really comb your book to make sure that the continuity is smooth. Number 6, pacing. How quick or slow you want your book to move depends a lot on the style of the book and the genre of the book and a lot of different factors, but you do really want to take a look at the pacing in your second draft. It can be very easy to lose track of how quickly or how slowly things are moving when you're spending so long writing them. So when you read through your book the way a reader would, try to identify points where the pace suddenly moves way too quickly, or points where it drags and nothing really happens for a long period of time. 7, rising tension. In order to keep the plot moving, try to make sure that tension is constantly rising. It can be a common pitfall for there to be rising tension until the end of Act 1, and then after that the tension kind of drops until the end of the book. This can lead to what's known as saggy middle syndrome because there aren't really stakes or rising tension throughout the middle of the book. And this leads into point 8, which is stakes. Don't let your stakes diminish in the middle. Though you will have conflicts that are resolved, try to continually raise stakes and leave tension open. Constant unresolved tension is what propels a novel forward. So if you're resolving that tension, it can really reduce the stakes and the emotional urgency of the plotline. And finally, number 9, efficiency. One of the most important things to do in revision is cut redundant scenes. combine scenes that can be combined, or delete scenes that aren't contributing anything. Pretty much any book will have a scene that needs to be cut, or multiple scenes that need to be cut, or multiple scenes that are serving the same purpose. Some writers will have to do more of this than others. Some really overwrite their books. Others tend to underwrite and their first drafts are a little short. But even for the writers whose first drafts veer towards the shorter end, there's still usually going to be a couple scenes that need to go because they're not really adding anything. So those are 9 things you can look out for in your developmental editing. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to subscribe for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time.